Welcome to this interview. I'm Megan Gibson, co-host of the Trauma Super Conference. Today, I'm speaking with Donna Jackson Nakazawa, an award-winning science journalist, author of 6 books, and an internationally recognized speaker whose work explores the intersection of neuroscience, immunology, and human emotion. Her newest book, The Angel and the Assassin, The Tiny Brain Cell That Changed the Course of Medicine, was named one of the best books of 2020 by Wired magazine. She's also the creator and founder of the trauma healing program, Your Healing Narrative, Right to Heal with Neural Re-Narrating, an online narrative writing course for educators, practitioners, and individuals. Donna, thank you for joining me today.
Pleasure to be here with you, Megan. To go back to your question, how do we map out this relationship between autoimmune disease, mental health, and brain inflammation? I think that's where you're starting, right?
And trauma, for that matter.
Yeah. Trauma, yes. So we know, so this is obviously something I teach for 3 or 4 hours at universities. So just to put it in a nutshell as best we can with these things, when we are growing up and we meet a lot of adversity, we call that chronic unpredictable stress or toxic stress, to use the more common nomenclature. Chronic unpredictable stress basically means that the body never has a chance to recover from periods of feeling unsafe. When you're growing up, your brain and throughout your life, its biggest job is to detect, am I safe or unsafe? That is, as an organism, your brain's job in your body, and you as an organism, you need to know, am I safe or unsafe? Thousands of messages are coming through all of your senses 24/7, which send you that message. As a child, as you're getting that message, whether you're safe or unsafe, your entire immune system and all of your neural synapses and your brain are forming in response to that message. It's one thing if there is a trauma and it's dealt with as a family and the family can talk about anything and move on, and a child feels safe and seen and known and cared for by the adults in his or her life as they go through this traumatic experience. But very often in our society, and we know this because of the famous ACEs research, 2/3 of kids grow up with a significant trauma in their lives. And that number is even higher when we bring in traumas outside of family life, like growing up in poverty, racism, sexism, in food deserts, with school shootings, with environmental crises like pandemics or mudslides or global warming. So we know that the average child is growing up, 2/3 of them, with at least one ACE score in their own family life. And we know that number is higher when we look at all the things that happen, which cause kids to feel unsafe. So when we consider that, the question is, are these stressors toxic in that they are chronic and unpredictable? And all of the household stressors and most of the environmental and social stressors we're talking about, they fall in that category. And here's why. A child never knows when they're going to happen. If you are growing up with a parent with a mental illness, or a parent with a substance abuse problem or alcoholism, or you're growing up with parents who maybe don't divorce, but they bicker all the time. If you're growing up watching a family member, your mom or sibling being treated in a way that's putting them down or physically dangerous, and if you yourself are being put down or humiliated or made fun of in your family life, those are chronic, unpredictable, and therefore toxic stressors. As you develop, those experiences begin to cause heightened levels of inflammation or inflammatory cytokines and hormones, especially as kids enter and pass through puberty, but everything that happens from, birth on, actually pre-birth on, the brain is getting that message. It's trying to answer that question. Am I safe or unsafe? Am I developing into a life that will be safe for me or not? And if not, for lots of reasons I won't go into right now, but we can delve into later, your body begins to churn up an inflammatory response to keep you safe. But unfortunately, the danger doesn't pass, and a child's body gets set on this cranked up, dialed up stress response, which in turn leads to more inflammation. And over time, this heightened level of inflammation, which we can measure on blood tests, begins to shift genes that lead to mental and physical health disorders over time. And this means that we see certain things go together. Trauma, chronic higher levels of inflammation as measured by blood tests, a greater likelihood of autoimmune disease, and a greater likelihood of mental health disorders in the same cohort of individuals.
And I'm glad you literally wrapped that up right to the bow that I was hoping for. But, and when I think about, children and adverse experiences, it isn't necessarily the adverse experiences that are directly creating trauma. It's that it's chronic and that there's no safety created for children to experience those, process them, integrate them. It's that chronic thing that you were talking about and the chronic nature of it that creates this kind of immune response that leads to all these things down the way, right?
That's right. And we all know, if we're parents, I'm a parent, you're a parent, we all know that we can't wrap our kids in saran wrap or, Teflon coat them. The world will find them. And we as parents, if we have our own trauma, we're going to have moments where we're more reactive in situations which maybe haunt us, seem so close to something we ourselves experience that we're not as well regulated as we need to be. So a lot of the work that I do now is focused on regulating the adults, the parents, my Writing to Heal courses, the next book on girls. A lot of the focus has to be on helping those of us who help others, whether it's family or patients or clients or students, to find that centered place within, even within our own story, right? And to see and connect those dots in a way that allows us a kind of self-transcendent awareness and consciousness, coupled with the skills that we need in that moment of dysregulation to come back to ourselves and also be what we hope to be for the people around us. And for most of us, that starts with our children.
This material in an excerpt from a longer podcast or video. Follow link in description to learn more.